I'm an American standing in Moscow, Russia. Behind me is the Kievsky railway station in the center of Moscow, named after the capital of the Ukraine. About a year ago, I went with some of my colleagues out of that station to the border area to see the effect the conflict is having on the people that live in between Russia and the Ukraine. Together, we met for the first time a Canadian who is also ex-military, from the perspective of Westerners who all live in Russia. I am the expat American.
I don't understand that question, but strategy is definitely part of it, of course.
It's hard to understand how long are we going to have to endure this.
And I just thought, I guess a person could say that in history, there was a time when the United States was young and lots of Westerners or like-minded people were flocking to the US because their older countries were a bit rigid and perhaps too controlling, and they wanted, an opportunity to, do other things, right? And maybe we're in a situation now where the Western countries have gotten kind of crazy and become kind of strict, and Russia is perhaps a place that is for traditional family values. Well, I know it is a place where a person, could feel freer and may want to come. What do you guys think?
For me, I think I can relate to a lot of what Stan is saying. Kind of negative atmosphere is permeating the entire planet, in my opinion. Like, it's not just here. Life is hard in Canada financially right now. Life is very confusing geopolitically. And I think that is part of a huge global psychological operation that's underway right now, because it's very difficult right now to make heads or tails of what's actually happening. You can't always trust your sources. You can't always keep up with the exponential function of technology that's changing. It's kind of demoralizing people. I think technology is demoralizing people in many respects, whether you have too much of it or not enough of it, right? Like, it's kind of all over the map right now. And it's hard to understand exactly like how Stan was saying about restrictions and like, what is the plan there? Because I understand that sometimes we go through restrictions because it's geolocating. Perhaps weaponries are using geolocation methods to find targets and that sort of thing. And if that's the case, then it's more understandable. I think the messaging is probably difficult for a foreigner to always stay abreast as to why things are being blocked, or, you kind of figure out that the internet's on at a certain time, especially on these border regions. We're getting in and out of connectivity, especially if you're on just a data plan rather than your Wi-Fi. And if it's for operational reasons, because the adversaries are using the data links to, focus in on populations and stuff, then it's understandable. I'm very concerned with how many countries are now fully researching how to make, automated battlefields without humans in them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a world that is, probably not one that is going to be that interesting to live in, and, psychologically difficult, because, we got now AI that's sort of like pushing into the Internet of Things aggressively, and that is got a very adverse effect. I think it's going to have it's uncontrolled. It's kind of like not understandable as to how perverse it's going to get, how influential it'll get politically, as well as just from a social standpoint.
Because you have military experience, you live on the border. I know you research this a lot. Tell us, we're 4 years in. What is the general status of the Russia-Ukraine conflict right now?
I think it's a laboratory of technology. It's a high-tech laboratory of technology going on. It's a kind of a new technological warfare, Cold War. It's not a Cold War; it's a technological war right now that's going on. And like I've heard of lots of companies that are helping Ukraine, and Russia's getting that technology as well and using it. Both sides are kind of inching along, and fumbling along, and there's a lot of interest in countries getting up to speed on this kind of warfare. You have the legacy kind of systems of warfare that you could see they're very clumsy now, whether it's the United States deploying battleship carrier groups out into the Indian Ocean and close to the Middle East, and these systems are just not that effective anymore, and they're actually big targets. And Um, you know, we do still live in the unipolar world from a control mechanism on finances and information. That's still holding its ground. It's losing its edge, I find. But as it affects the war in Ukraine, I mean, let's be honest, Ukraine has done a fantastic job right from the beginning of this conflict in propaganda. It has always outshined Russia's propaganda, right? And it didn't, and it's open and it's encouraged in the world versus everything that Russia does is going to be highly restricted, sanctioned, locked, and as much information doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. It's not allowed to be viewed in the West. And at this point, I almost see the world, like especially the Western world, like you don't want to know what's going on, then that's on you. But don't be surprised when the vacuum of the lies come crashing in on you. And fundamentally, it is difficult to live through attrition warfare, which is going on in Ukraine. But the bottom line is who has the greater advantage? It still lies with Russia militarily. It still lies with the ability to have more, especially long-range artillery, air dominance, where you can drop the fab bombs on command centers and logistical nodes. I mean, Russia still has the advantage, and you can definitely hear the narrative coming up. Putin, he's like, as it relates to Germany and other European countries, don't think you're going to be treated like we're treating Ukraine, because Ukraine is surgery versus, any other operation outside of Ukraine will be way more aggressive, and they won't worry about, I guess, casualties in terms of collateral damages to infrastructure as much. So, I mean, I don't anticipate that this is going to end anytime soon. I think you're still in attrition warfare. I think it's still a grind to try and reduce the fighting capability of Ukraine. And I would hope that, because warfare is politics by other means, I hope that this can get back into the political arena, because that's where you can have disagreements with a lot less damage, right? And you can maybe compromise and live with certain realities. And it's very clear to me that Ukraine is not going to concede territory, not going to concede Crimea from a geopolitical standpoint in the international alliances that they've formed. And so, to me, unless the Ukrainian population starts to really turn in on itself and says, we're tired of bleeding and dying for the Europeans and for the Americans and for the other foreign powers that are trying to strategically defeat Russia, then there'll be some political change. And until that happens, we're going to be having more scary technological advances that come about on the battlefield, and experience those, firsthand. Whether it be a couple of them that really concern me is the ability to put on a microchip into a rocket, and it no longer needs GPS coordinated coordinates. It'll fly by AI. It'll do its own reckoning over the territory as it's flying, and understand and pick its own targets. And it's the Terminator movie coming alive, and it's frightening, and that's rockets. And rockets are, like, I've experienced it here now. Rockets are way more terrifying than drones. But drones on the border region, especially the border towns, they're wreaking havoc on civilians. They're wreaking havoc because there's a lot of collateral damage.